It's not always easy to determine what's causing lag in your world, especially if you've got a test world like this, which is full of redstone contraptions and all sorts of things going on. Maybe you've got this on a realm or on a server or on single player and it's lagging out and you're not 100% sure why. Well, there's a couple of things you can do. You could use my markers pack like this, which will give you a good indication of how well your game is doing. And notice I say game and not world. That only gives you an indication of your device. Your mobile, your PC, your console, whatever you're playing on, and the more entities and things like that, the more stuff going on visually, or the more things your client is having to process, the worse things are going to be. Like, for instance, added in millions and millions and millions of creepers will eventually slow down your FPS to a point where your game's unplayable. But that doesn't actually necessarily mean that the server is struggling. And this markers pack is available from FoxyNoTail.com, and it can do a whole bunch of things other than just tell you your frames per second. But how do we find out actually how well the world's doing? Well, you might notice behind me that redstone slowed down a little bit, which makes me think there's some lag going on here. Probably to do with the 4,000 creepers I've just spawned in. So I'm going to give myself a tag. Tag at @saddtickadmin. And yes, if you're on a single player world or realm, you'll need cheats enabled to give yourself a tag. But if you're on a server, you'll be able to do that through the server console without enabling cheats. Then all I'm going to do is hold this piece of redstone dust, and you'll see I have a whole bunch of information on my screen. Not about my client, but how the world is actually doing, whether that's a world, a realm, or a server. And you can see here there's a bunch of things going on. We've got odd ticks, even ticks, and then some averages. And why have we got odd ticks and even ticks? Well, on Minecraft Bedrock Edition, like Java Edition, there are 20 ticks per second, which should be 50 milliseconds per tick. However, on Bedrock Edition, that's split into two. Redstone will generally fire on one of those ticks, and it's normally the odd tick, but not always. And other things that go on, such as entity behaviors and things like that, will happen on the other tick. So, basically, the game, if you've got a heavy redstone contraption going on and not many entities around, it can catch up. However, if you've got a million entities and a whole bunch of laggy redstone, you can see my game's running very, very slowly, at a measly 7 ticks per second on average over the last 4 seconds, which is not very good. So let's do some tests. If I kill all of these creepers, and while I'm doing that, why don't you hit that like button, then you'll see the even ticks have jumped up into the green. I'm now getting even ticks, actually more ticks per second than the game should run at. It's actually doing a catch-up in order to give me a steady 20 ticks per second on average and a steady 50 milliseconds per tick on average, because my redstone, believe it or not, in this crazy world full of many, many redstone contraptions, is actually causing a little bit of a slowdown. So let's turn off this beastie, and let's see if we can find something really bad. So a little bit further away, I just happen to have an area that has 16,000 hoppers in it, and these hoppers are not really doing a great deal because the barrels at the front are completely blocked up, which means the items can't go through, and these are enchanted items, so they've got a lot of data, and that means it's actually not very good for my world at all. As you can see, my even ticks this time, not odd ticks, the redstone tick that is trying to get these items into these barrels is running at less than half the speed it should do, so the odd ticks now are running at, well, basically hyperspeed, trying to catch up the game, because there really is very little else going on over here. As you can see from my markers pack, I'm running at a steady 120 frames per second, so if I was just using that, I'd have no idea that this was lagging out my world. But it is, almost. You can see on average, actually, my world's running at the normal speed, because even with these 16,000 hoppers here that are all struggling to get items into these barrels, well, the catch-up tick, the odd ticks this time, is running so quickly because there's nothing else to process, it can actually smooth that out and even out the process, which means I don't really feel it. And when I click on these hoppers and things like that, you know, everything's nice and easy. However, throwing in a few creepers into the world, you can see, well, there are a lot there. There's an awful lot of creepers there, but it's very, very quickly now affecting the catch-up tick, or in this case, the odd tick, which is really starting to lag out my game because there isn't a spare tick for the world to catch up on. So not only is my redstone going horrendously slowly, but these creepers are also affecting everything else as well. So it just goes to show you that using this pack, you can detect all sorts of things that's going on. You can detect if your redstone is laggy, or you can detect if there's something else that's causing the problem. Chances are it's a bunch of entities that are basically doing all sorts of things that you don't want them to be doing. And then if you use this in combination with my markers pack, you'll be able to see whether or not it's your client that's the problem, i.e. you've got not enough frames per second compared to what you would normally get, or you can see using this one, you know, the fact that we're at 5 ticks per second now. This is not good. So how do you get hold of this fancy pack, I hear you asking? Well, the same as usual. Head over to FoxyNoTail.com, go to downloads and add-ons, and scroll all the way down till you get to Tick Performance. Click on that, click the download link, then install it to your world or server, and the instructions for all that can actually be found on this website. And while you're clicking around on the internet and doing all that good stuff, why don't you hit that like button and consider subscribing for more of these videos?